on stage Mr. Shabbir Imani, Founder Director, Expensing. Thank you, everyone. Yes, you guys can please have a round of applause for sir.
Good morning, guys. How many of you had tea, coffee? You know, you guys, the tea, coffee system here is not working, boss. Just see the good morning they've got. And remember, this is your last chance to wish good morning. The next speaker will get into good afternoon. Yeah, so let's hear that again. Good morning?
Good morning.
That gives me energy to present. Okay. How many of you here believe that statutory compliance and its twin brother, which is all the different kind of audits that happen, has been becoming significantly more complex in India, and that is having an impact on the workload and the work profile of your teams? Great. So, let's dive a little bit into this and talk about this. So thank you for participating. That was a nice good morning, as well as the number of hands that went up. Thank you for that. As I present this, you can look at it from various points of view. You can look at it from the point of view of, uska coat theek nahi hai, you should have worn a different jacket to go with this thing. So where you focus is what you will get on. My recommendation is focus on how this applies to you and your organization. Yeah, if you look at it from that point of view, you will get maximum out of that. As I was sitting there, that's how I was listening to all the speakers there. So let's start off. And because the whole journey of statutory compliance and what we've been going is a long, arduous journey, so I've used a metaphor of the road and a car to go ahead and do this throughout this presentation so that we get an idea of what we are talking about. We're going to talk about statutory compliance, risks, and workload. The impact on these two aspects is what we are going to talk about. Great. As I talk to a lot of, I approximately meet about more than a dozen CFOs, financial controllers in a month. Yeah. Given that kind of a thing, the aspect I like to ask them is, what is it that is making you consider the area of either spend management or accounts payable automation and all those related areas as areas that you want to really automate? Yeah, which will, from your point of view, will talk about, what's in it for me. Is this something which applies to me? Is this something that I should look at? So 5 factors come out as the strongest ones based on a survey of approximately 300 to 320 CFOs that we have done. And the topic of my presentation comes from this, that the number one aspect that people are talking about is, if I have to focus on something and my team has to focus beyond the mundane and beyond the bookkeeping into something which is more higher end for my organization, contribute more to my organization, how do I ensure that I achieve statutory compliance automatically with minimum load on my team so that I'm able to focus on that which gives me satisfaction, which contributes to my team's growth based on looking at it from the company as well as the individual's point of view. Because we are talking spend management, some people have experienced leakages and wastages. Some CFOs suspect leakages and wastages. Either way, I was surprised to find that that was a significant factor in people's mind in terms of putting the right kind of controls in place to ensure that wastages and leakages of different kinds are handled by the system rather than having senior people who kind of implement those controls on your behalf to make it happen. A lot of you have talked about how analytics, data is becoming important. How do you get presented data in a way which, based on your spend style or your cost control style or your cost management style, depending on how you look at it. There are people who say, can you help me bring a element of cost consciousness across my organization? So a very soft factor compared to saying, hey, I want to do cost reduction. Yeah, so from an extreme called cost reduction to bring cost consciousness in my organization, the aspect of how do you reduce things like maverick spends, which otherwise happen if your controls are not good? How do you reduce the cost of processing itself? I want smaller teams. I want teams which are, doing different kind of work. And spend analytics is something which is important. The fourth aspect, especially after COVID has become very important, is I want my organization to be agile, to react quickly to what is happening in the market. If there is an application by virtue of whatever it does which helps me go ahead and do that quickly, that's show me how to do it. And surprisingly, if I was to look at one metric which a lot of people are asking for, it's turnaround time. That has become far more important than it was earlier. So people are that much conscious about how well are they servicing their internal stakeholders and sometimes even the customers as part of this thing. And this is something you would have all. I think in the last 5 years, the composition of finance teams has changed completely. From teams with large clerical workforces to much smaller teams where people are ones who can drive initiatives, drive improvements. To those people, you want to make sure you remove all the unnecessary work for them. All the repetitive work, all the dog work gets removed. And how can anything help me in a whole lot of these areas? And some of these areas are beyond just finance, but some of these departments often report into the CFO. So how do you go? So these were the 5 things, Quickly think to yourself which are the 1 or 2 which apply to you, and keep that as a backdrop as you hear the rest of my presentation. Why is statutory compliance becoming even more important? This is self-evident, so I'm not going to spend too much time. One is the landscape is becoming complex. Of course, we understand that. Too many things to be managed. When GST started off, it meant 1, 2, 3 things that I need to go ahead. Today, there are 10 things, 12 things related to GST, and add the other elements and it becomes even more complex. The pace at which requirements are being added. Yeah? Every time there is a GST meet, or if there is something on TDS which is happening, or a budget is coming, there is some change or the other keeps happening, and some of them could have dramatic impact on how you need to make your systems turn around. So your systems have to be very agile to be able to go ahead and this thing. Like a classic example of this was this new rule which came in from this year, the year that just went by, which said, if you have not paid an MSME vendor within 45 days, you will have to reverse those because you can't claim that as an expense. Systems were just not geared to go ahead and take care of that kind of things. We all know this, the consequences are becoming more severe. And they're not just the financial consequences, the fines, the interests, but it goes beyond that and very often involves your CEO, managing director, other people also as part of this thing. And thanks to Caro coming in, auditors are becoming far more strict because it's their survival which is at stake, out there. Even I was talking, we have a lot of banks who are customers. I was talking to a payment bank and the person said, my auditors are saying that if I want to continue getting new things, I'll have to go next year back to RBI. So I'll have to be good at that as far as thing. So, and this in a scenario when, look, if you're with one of the leading international ERPs, it's not going to take care of this situation. So we want to go ahead and ensure that. I'll show you, just so that we are sure what am I talking about when I say accounts payable automation. I'm going to show you a quick video which...
CFOs are only too familiar with the challenges of processing supplier invoices. In fact, it's an obstacle path with bad news popping up every now and then. MSME vendor payment delay, penalty claim, GST not reconciled, oops, vendor information out of date. Auditor's query, inadequate internal financial controls. CEO escalation, accounting and provisioning delayed. If that's not enough, the tax and statutory environment in India keeps CFOs on their toes. Has the right GST been charged to you? Have you ensured that the GST has been paid by vendor to the government? Have you deducted the right TDS? Have you reported MSME delayed payments to the government? Is your software regulated by the cybersecurity law in India? Have you provisioned your expenses? Intelligent and thoughtful software can smoothen the ride. Get on the Expensing Accounts Payable Automation Expressway. It's a much, much smoother ride. Vendor empanelment and compliance, invoice due diligence and approval engine, IRN and e-invoices, purchase request to purchase order, tax and TDS rules engine, cost allocation, provisioning, budget control, mobile app, lease and rent management, asset management, recurring expense management, vendor report for invoices, GST reconciliation. Boy, that was fast. But that's what AP automation does. speeds up processes, and increases safety. What do all these mean to your finance team KRAs? Save time and reduce errors in accounts payable, on-time expense accounting, accurate cost allocation accounting, accurate and timeline payment status updates, process adherence. Most importantly, expensing AP automation gives statutory compliance and corporate governance the boost they need. You will never need to worry about doing business with non-compliant vendors, risk of frauds and scams, risk of double payments, GST and TDS compliance, audit reports on poor processes, spiraling team costs, unhappy vendors, delays in MSME vendor payments. Ready to take a ride on the new expensing AP automation expressway?
So, quick note on audit requirements. Again, given the paucity of time, most of you would be aware of this, so I'm not going to talk too much on each one of this. Too many types of audits, additional requirements based on some of these aspects which come here. Caro I did mention earlier. And if you get into IFC audit, then aspects like it's not just about the accuracy of your numbers, but the maturity of your processes and this which you're getting audited on. So how do you take care of this? Whole new areas where questions are being asked. Yeah, we recently had to create an entire provisioning application because auditors are asking questions about provisioning versus the actual expense in ways in which they were never asking earlier. How did you arrive at those? So those kind of aspects are also adding to this thing. What are some of the aspects which are being talked about? Again, I'll go through this a little fast. So the whole aspect of IRN invoices and the numbers increasing dramatically. There is thing that this will get changed to 2 crores anytime now as the limit after which you have. The onus on you to ensure that if a company was supposed to give a GST invoice through IRN, you get that through the portal. You read the information automatically on that, and if you make any mistakes, it will hit you in the next part, which is, the aspects on GST. Do you capture all of this? Auto splitting of these into this thing. Can the system go ahead and do that for you instead of somebody having to look into that? Automatically reconciling the invoice with what is there on the portal. Ability to track millions of special cases which keep expanding as things go ahead. So are you able to take care of that? And now vendor credit notes, since they also need to come through the GST portal and they need to get set off against the right invoice so that you can get the. So just a quick, a busy slide which talks about the complexities and the kind of things that you have on the GST part, on the ITC claiming part. Yeah, again, any mistake here means your funds get this thing, or you get charged a penalty, or you do not get your credit related to that. So how do you ensure that your ITC claiming process is smooth? And usually for most companies, that's a substantial amount that we are talking about. Just like GST, there is TDS, which is again a significant thing. And just look at some of those things which have started appearing, 206AB, 206CCA, etc., lower TDS certificates. How do you ensure that automatically you are deducting lower TDS as part of the entire thing? The biggest pain area which a lot of my managers talk about, which is MSME, we were hoping that the budget would reverse that, at least for the last financial year. Nirmala ji decided, no, we deserve to go through this, so we went through it. Know your vendor kind of requirements, 2 kinds of information, one time and ongoing, which you need to do. I've given examples of this. Making all of this online. Nobody now asks for, send me your MSME certificate to show that you are, people go online. And then you have requirements, like I mentioned here, has he filed his returns for the last 2 years? How much time are you going to spend with vendors to go ahead and collect that information? Can you get all of that happening automatically? That's the whole know your vendor aspect that we are talking about. New ISD requirement. So those of you multi-location, you would know this adds huge amount of load to whatever it is that you are doing. I was talking recently to the microfinance company who had a mere 128 branches because he's microfinance. And he's like, if I don't automate this, I'll have to, this office that you see here, which right now has 4 departments, it'll become a complete finance office, unless I go ahead and automate. So that's the kind of impact some of these things will go ahead and have. InfoSec is something which kind of is becoming important. So ensuring that you're on the right side as far as InfoSec depends also on the industry that you are. But my recommendation is, if you're not a regulated industry, remember some of these InfoSec requirements are for your good, not just to satisfy the regulator who's going ahead and doing this. So to quickly, kind of summarize: vendor invoicing, GST elements, MSME vendor, know your vendor, new ISD requirements, InfoSec requirements are what we talked about. And a good system would help you handle all of those effectively. Last important slide that I'm going to present is, you start with accounts payable automation, but you can expand it to make it bigger. So what are your peers doing as far as that? So you have your core APA, which handles vendor invoices, credit note payment, or employee vouchers, all of that. You can add procurement, which is your PR, PO, GR, and vendor advance, to make it a procure-to-pay system. You can add strategic sourcing, which is reverse auction, ERFX, etc., to also have source-to-pay, not just procure-to-pay, but source-to-pay. This thing, I talked about vendor empanelment and KYB, vendor portal, so that all your transactions, including document exchange with your vendors, sending PO, receiving e-invoices from them, receiving credit notes from them, you need a no-due certificate. How can you have all of that happen electronically and stored in a secure place which is auditable by your auditor, so that you just need to give access to the system and say, please go ahead and do this. Only come to me if you find a non-compliance related to that. Specialized applications, if you're a multi-location organization. Just yesterday in Bangalore, since I came a day earlier, I was meeting a large retailer, and their number one requirement was managing recurring expenses and rent for 1,500 stores and 25 factories that they have. They wanted to go ahead and do that. The fixed asset related spend and managing the entire life cycle, including new statutory requirements like physical verification of inventory, which needs to be done at a fixed frequency, and travel and expense management, which is the expense part, the employee part of the entire expense management. We have a stall here. Please come in and see us. I think I have a minute if you have any of you has a question. No questions usually means understood everything or understood nothing.
Okay. Just want to understand about like import. Whether some import or export that is also one of the payable. Whether it has been integrated in your.
It has to be. This kind of a system cannot work if it is not integrated with your ERP. No company will enter information here, then go ahead and have a team which again goes ahead and types those. So it is not just import and export into your ERP. It could be import and export with the GST portal. It could be import and export with new things like the KYB thing, where you go ahead and check up. For example, of import and export, you brought out a relevant thing. For utilities, now you get your bills directly from, you no longer wait for your bill. Now imagine you are working from 40 locations. Your bills used to, electricity bill, let's say, or any of the other utilities, water, etc., would come late, and then you pay additional charges, etc. You just centralize the whole function, put one person in charge of 200 locations and go ahead and manage. So import and export is of data, or exchange of data, which is the way I would like to call it, between any add-on system that you put now and your existing systems that are there, as well as the India stack that is getting created for all of us by the government, which is a huge blessing for us, because of which we are able to take care of some of the statutory compliances, is an important part. So fortunately, technology has been advancing, so all kinds of integrations become much easier. 3 bells means get off the stage. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful presentation. Everyone, please have a round of applause for Shabbir, sir. To felicitate our moderator, I would like to call on stage Mr. Jaju. So please come on stage and felicitate the speaker.
Thank you. One takes life as it comes.
Everyone, this calls for a round of applause, everyone. Thank you.